Welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Your host, Jill Hart, the Coach's Alchemist. Couldn't be more excited to have you join us today. On this podcast, we celebrate the champions of change, the up-and-coming life, health and transformational coaches who are fearlessly stepping forward to make a difference in the world. Get ready for inspiring stories, practical tips, and powerful moments that will motivate you to make a positive change in your life and those around you. We're happy to have you join us on this incredible journey as we dive into the world of life, health, and transformational coaches who are lighting up the path towards a better tomorrow.
Hi, and welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Today we have Jehan, and he is here to tell us about getting to the root of self-sabotage. I'm really excited to talk to you about this because really it's the crux of the problem in most people's cases. So tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started, and what it's all about.
Well, you're absolutely right. It is the crux of the problem. I'm Jehan Sattaur. I am a CTAA, that's Complementary Therapist Accreditation Association, cognitive behavioral therapist, hypnotherapist, nutrition coach. I am also a mindfulness teacher and specialist in the area of subconscious self-sabotage. I got started because I was an expert at self-sabotage about 12 years ago. Nothing that I did seemed to work out. Every time I got somewhere, I would blow all my money or ruin my relationships or just do something that would ruin my progress. And through that, I ran into a lady who's no longer with us. She was a gym owner in Florida, and I was a musician at the time, and I was doing well with that. When she kind of saw that I needed additional help, and she pulled me into the side and she said, "Hey, I want to help you, and anything that you need, you can just let me know." And for me, it was pretty hard to believe because of the headspace that I was in. But I took her up on the offer, and she introduced me to a lot of different works like Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life by Dr. Wayne Dyer. Suddenly after that, things started showing up for me, all these different books on psychology and spirituality and things like that. And I got very much into that. And so I just started cleaning up my life from there, and magical things happened. I began to, as they say, manifest. Woo, manifest. All these different opportunities that I really wanted started happening, and I just couldn't quite figure out what it was that had changed. And that sent me on a soul searching mission to figure out exactly what happened. And, 12 years later, here I am.
It's really amazing how most of our journeys start with ourselves. And like you said, self-sabotaging is like everybody kind of starts there. Even if it's a health problem, you're sabotaging your own health by what you eat or whether you exercise or not. It all really comes back down to that core thing you're doing. Even your thoughts. I mean, you can have really negative thoughts all day long, and that's self-sabotaging yourself because it's not hurting anybody else. It's just hurting you. So that's why this is so interesting to me, because it is really the basis for really making progress. I mean, when you were starting to make changes and you recognized that, how did that impact your life? I mean, how did you talked about things magically changing, but in looking back, do you see how the progress went?
Well, first of all, things didn't magically change. When you are a chronic self-sabotager, someone can be telling you something or giving you the right information, or you could be doing the right thing at the right time, and you don't see it because you're consumed with self-sabotaging patterns, right? Your subconscious mind is in control of all of that. And what I realized was that I just couldn't quite see what it was that had changed. And that forced me to ask different questions. Most people that I have ever met in this work, they don't really have that capacity yet. And I say yet to realize that they're making the choices that they're making for a reason. And they don't ask that question. Okay, now what is it that I am actually doing here? What am I not seeing? And I guess that was true for me as well. I really didn't see what was happening in and around me, most importantly, in me. And I wasn't yet ready to accept responsibility for the power of choice. So I guess I would sum it up with that, my choices and my ability to become aware of my choices, even like you said, choices of thought started coming to the surface. And very smartly, I decided to think differently and act differently. And it was hard. It always is hard.
It's hard in the beginning, but it does get easier, I think. It's like learning any new skill.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody starts at the beginning and you're not very good at it.
Mm-hmm.
But you keep working that muscle and then it just becomes who you are instead of that person that you were. And especially around thoughts, because we don't really think about what we think about unless we're conscious of thinking about what we're thinking about. And
Yeah.
just thinking about things that move you towards what you want instead of what you don't want, leave space for what you want to happen, right? As opposed to we call the things we don't want to us by thinking about them all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And we like to point the finger. I know that firsthand. And we would point the finger at things that, um, we were doing. We found ourselves in those situations. And that's usually how it works for us on this planet. We end up in a bad situation. We don't have the mental fortitude, the strength to even wrap our minds around the idea that everything that we have right now in this terrible moment is because we repetitively thought that thing, or we were exposed to it repetitively, and so it just plays out. And the hardest part about the whole thing that I found with people is like in the first year of working with people, I really came to understand how unprepared I was. It didn't matter how much work I'd done on myself. I was very much unprepared to hold space for other people, to listen to what they were saying without judgment, to even understand 99% of the time the situations they'd been in, because that's unique to them. And I would never really truly know, right? So I had to learn all of those skills on the fly. And I realized that people genuinely just don't know how to do the things that they don't know how to do. They genuinely don't. And oftentimes, this entire sentence is gonna be cliches because you don't see the picture when you're in the frame. When you have a subconscious pattern, that's coming from the 95% of you that just wants to keep you safe and what it thinks is happy. And so you don't see that you're messing up your whole life or messing up opportunities with people, your relationships, your work life, spending all your money. It doesn't look like it to you. So how could you ever work backwards and see that when it's just an automatic faculty of the brain? How could you ever do that? So it's difficult, I empathize with anybody that's self-sabotaging because you're potentially losing everything that you have and you have no clue where to begin. You can't see it. Even if somebody told you, like a regular life coach came along and told you you were doing it, unless they were willing to really go there with you, it's difficult. So
They have to catch a glimpse at some point, don't you think?
I think
Like,
that they do. And I think that because there's emotion attached to it, that 20 seconds of emotion that's attached to something, it blocks that person from having that self realizing moment. And it's important because even if you didn't act on that, you would still mentally grow in a different direction that eventually it would change. But most people just want to put their hands up and scream and say, no, I can't deal with this right now. So they turn on the TV or they go have a drink or stick some cake in their mouth or something, you know. I'm not taking a dig at people, but this is what we do. We soothe our emotions with other things we love to avoid and distract from our internal world when in reality our internal world is the outer world.
Yeah, it's the decisions we make, it's the thoughts we have, it's what creates our reality for us. We're the sum, we are at the point at any given moment, it's the sum of the decisions we've made up to that point. If we want to go somewhere else, we have to make different decisions. But most people get trapped in decisions and think that change can't really happen for them, or they want change to happen, but they really have no idea how to change their thoughts or to change the decisions that they're making, or
Mm-hmm.
lack the courage maybe to make the decisions to get help or really explore different options, I think.
Yeah. And also as well, like every behavior behind it, there's a positive reward, even if the result is bad. And so that makes it even worse when you're trying to change something because you don't always see the payoff.
Mhm.
And it can be challenging. It can be more than challenging. It can be devastating sometimes just trying to change patterns on your own. And if you don't have someone like us that can coach you through it and just be the mirror in the room, it can be difficult breaking things that to somebody else might seem simple.
Mhm. So you talk about increasing happiness in difficult situations on your website. I was over there scoping it out. And
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit, because I think sometimes people just get trapped in negative thoughts and negative emotions, and we call it depression and anxiety. And
Yeah, all these different labels for everyday normal experiences. And I don't want to get too much into that aspect of things, but that's a part of the conditioning on planet Earth. If you think something and it makes you feel unhappy, something's wrong with you. And it's kind of used against us because we have this internal faculty. We all have mental filters that we pass information through, and one of them just so happens to be there must be something wrong with me. And so when something happens, what do we do? Our internal faculty that makes us want to self-regulate and solve the problem becomes maladaptive. We point the finger at ourselves and we say, okay, something's wrong with me, I'm defective. And that isn't even, I wish I could say that that's coming from childhood trauma or something simple. It's not. A lot of stuff that happens to people, you search them and then not a thing happened in their childhood that they can remember that was terrible. um Nothing in their subconscious is um sounding like it was traumatic either. And so you just kind of have to leave that alone and realize that it's something that they're doing right now. It's a choice that they're actively making right now for another reason apart from all of that. And so when a person wants to create happiness, it has to be a commitment. Because if you've ever noticed, we never say, "Oh, I'm so traumatized because yesterday I just laughed so hard. I was so happy." We never do that, right?
I love that. I love that.
And so dealing with negative automatic thoughts has to be an ongoing process for the rest of your life that you commit to, where you say, okay, if I want to be better every day of my life, I have to be willing to question every thought that comes into my head, find out what's the reason that it's there. Is it a meaning that I assign to something? Is it my expectation? Is there an emotion accompanying this? Okay. So, whatever it is I'm triggered by, the outcome is obviously some emotion. What do I believe about this? And you have to live that way forever till the day you die. And people don't realize is that even though that sounds intimidating, it really isn't, because it creates a depth to your mind where it's like moving from a smaller room into a much bigger room, and then eventually you're in an arena somewhere and you have a lot of space to move around, and there's not so much happening in your head that it gets easier and easier and easier. Of course, there's some brain chemistry that's happening there with the neurons and stuff, the clusters of neurons, but it's more than just that. It becomes a part of you that it's actually very hard to change that once you begin, because you just feel good and you want to turn up the volume on grateful thoughts and joyful thoughts and turn down the volume on garbage.
Yeah, that doesn't serve you. And you
Yeah.
start to look at things that you're thinking about. Yeah, everybody still gets caught once in a while in a negative thought pattern, because we're human and we're all still evolving. But when you get in that and you recognize, hey, I'm thinking about this, makes me feel bad. That if I'm thinking about another person, it's not affecting them, because I'm not telling them about it. The only person that's being injured by this thought is me.
Yeah.
And it's more than just what's going on in your head as far as the thought. It actually causes a physical reaction in your body when you have negative thoughts. And it's so important to get control of what you're thinking about. Like, people talk about the things, old people like to talk about all the things that ail them. When you're speaking illness over yourself, and
Yeah.
you're not going to heal from that perspective. And you can. I've seen some pretty miraculous changes just because people believed something else to be true about themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, that's the way it works. You just have to swap one thing out for the other thing.
Mm-hmm. And stay focused on it, because if you start, like,
Yeah.
if you waver, you're gonna fall.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Hmm.
you can practice, and it's not like you're gonna get it right all the time. But
Yeah.
as you
Yeah,
go
you're
ahead.
right. You're not going to get it right all the time. And usually those things are where you have to come see the self-sabotage coach or go to
Yeah.
your local hypnotherapist or something, because that means that it's not a pattern that you can reprogram simply by repetition. There's not enough of a reward there for you to do it. It's too painful. And usually that means that there's language in the subconscious that has a no or a yes after it when you execute a certain thing. And a lot of people get sick because it's not safe for them to let go. So the program is literally, I am not safe to let go. So they're hanging on, they got neck pain, shoulder pain, a kidney, or something's going wrong. And it turns out that that's what it is. And it has nothing to do with what they were eating. They changed their diet to a completely healthy diet. Nothing changed. It was something in their subconscious that they weren't even aware of, because it's not going to come up like that. It's not going to come up explicitly. It's not safe for me to let go. So it could be anything when it comes to the mind. It could be anything when it comes to healing a physical body part or something. And it's important that people know at this time in humanity's development that all these other options are available, that there's people that understand this rather than have to get on the hamster wheel.
Of labeling at your local doctor's office, you mean?
Yeah, you filled it in just right for me. I'm usually much more aggressive, but I'm just trying to dial it back for this one.
There's no need. I think doctors are really great if you've broken something and you need something put back together. But beyond that, I think they're pretty much useless across the board. Their
Mhm.
paradigm has the whole paradigm of healing has shifted so much with the advent of coaches who can really dig into what is causing this problem. And a lot of times
Mhm.
it's not just a random physical thing. Like, you could have a stomach ache, a chronic stomach ache, and you go to the doctor a million times and he'll tell you it's all in your head. Well, in some ways, I think he's right that it's all in your head, but it's he doesn't give you any tools to actually get it out of your head. And that's, I think, where coaching comes in.
Yeah. You gotta love it because things have changed in reality so much, and yet the majority of us just live in old paradigms that are all about fueling the monetary system, essentially.
I call it the medical industrial complex.
The medical industrial complex. Yep. That's essentially what it's all about, and um I think that the best thing that people can do is ask better questions. Learn to ask better questions. When anything happens, you just ask yourself, for what purpose am I thinking this? And you wait for an answer. You might feel an emotion, question that too. Like it'll only take a few seconds for you to get over that emotion. It doesn't mean that you have to stop in your seat right now and have a whole breakthrough and you gotta get the tissues out and all that. It doesn't have to come down to that. But if you can get yourself thinking slightly differently than you did, man, that makes just so much more of a difference than if you just ignored it and moved on.
Absolutely. It's how does your working with you look when your clients come along?
Working with me, how does that look? It looks messy.
I love it.
I usually start my clients off with one lesson where we get to know each other, we get to know each other's values, because a lot of people are walking around making choices that are not their own, or making choices that are bad for them, or people pleasing, or other things, self-sabotaging in some other way, or they are not aware of the extent of their choices because they don't know what their values are. And if a person doesn't have their values that they can rattle off a list of at least their top 3 values, they're living life in an incredibly disempowered way because they're getting pulled in every direction except for the direction that they really want to go. So I usually start there, and then we address what are the areas in their lives that are difficult. What do they keep messing up? If you want to lose weight, your relationships suck, is your health suck? What's going on for you? What's your biggest challenge? And we try to figure out, in very small bites. Because if you try to change everything all at once, that person is accustomed self-sabotaging. So what do you think they're going to do when they try to change all that, right? So it's usually trying to figure out what is the real problem. And it always happen in a day. It doesn't always happen in 2 or 3 sessions. Sometimes you get led down the garden path and you think, okay, this is what's going on, and it's really something else. You find out that something else in their environment. I don't know if you've heard any of my other interviews where I talk about the TV and stuff like that, where those things influence us as well, and we don't even realize because it's normal, quote unquote, normal in society. But the subconscious doesn't know the difference between what's on the TV and what you thought about, right? So,
Yeah.
so people do things that end up actually being out of their control, and really what they need to do is to turn off the TV.
That's why they call it programming, because it programs you.
Exactly.
So who's your ideal client? How would somebody know that they should work with you?
Someone will know that they need to work with me when nothing is going right in their lives. Even if it was at some point, it's not anymore. And no matter what they do to change it, it's just not happening.
Do you focus on any one group of people, or are you just like pretty much, if you're feeling stuck and you're noticing that things aren't going the way you want them to in life, call Jehan?
Yeah, call me. Call me. Let's find out if if I can actually help you, because some people are not in a state of receptivity yet to actually make the changes. Their desire to
Mhm.
change is not greater than their desire to stay the same. So I have to kind of figure out what I can do for you. And there's still some things that we can do about that to get you ready to move yourself forward and, move the needle a little bit. The majority of my clients are actually women. There's very few men are stepping up to the plate and changing themselves, at least as far as I can see.
And I think there's a lot of stigma around that women are just like, I'm finding out who I am. I got a purpose and I got to get this all this junk sorted out first.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, I
hoping that
think
the guys will catch on. They just like they're distracted by life.
yeah.
Life can get hectic and they feel driven to do certain things, and when they get older perhaps they can slow down enough to say, was that really making me happy?
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah, you're right.
inspired by some of the younger generation. Like I have a daughter who's 19 and her boyfriend's like 20-ish, and they are so in tune with what they want in life and how they want their life to go. And they're not driven by money, like, at all. They don't lack for anything, and they have such a great presence when you're
Mhm.
around them. They're really fun people, but they're not like party people. They're just
Mhm.
they're just people that have different interests, and they don't feel the need to have to um, work their life away, which I think happens to so
Yeah.
many people. They just get stuck in this career mold, and you're just like, I have to do all of these things. And then the self-sabotaging starts because you're like
Mhm.
trying to anesthetize yourself on your off time because you're so miserable while you're
Yeah.
working.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head right there. Self-sabotage, and for the most part, is a byproduct of enculturation. And that's what the culture says. We have to work hard until we're ready to retire. And then we die after that. It's
Yeah, you
essentially
sit in
it.
front of the television and die.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about kids, and not just kids, there are people who have somehow escaped that. They don't follow the money trail, and they don't follow what society does, and that's because they're more in tune with what their spirit wants. And the reason why they lack for nothing is because to spirit there is no lack, right?
Exactly. Yes, she's. I have 5 kids, and she's the youngest, and she's just like so zen. Probably because she's been doing karate since she was like 5, and their karate is more about exploring reality, like from a energy perspective rather than a societal perspective. It's she's just grown into this amazing human being. I couldn't be more proud of her, the human she's become.
Well, that's good to hear. That sounds like she's a really nice young lady.
She really is
Mhm.
powerful, but sweet as the day is long.
Mhm.
She's
Stories like that give me hope.
yeah, she's just doing so well. So, what's the one thing that you would like to leave the audience with today? The,
Give yourself grace and try to understand that if you're wanting to create something for yourself and it's not working out, there's something that you cannot see, and you need to go talk to someone that can help you see and figure out what exactly it is you need to change, and be willing and open to make those changes, because you're the only person that suffers.
yeah, for sure. And how can people get in touch with you?
You can find me on Instagram at Jehan Sattaur. That's Jehan Sattaur. You can also email me directly at selfsabotageinfo@proton.me.
Perfect. And we'll put those links in the description or the show notes. Thank you so much, Jehan, for coming on and chatting with us about this. You've just been like so inspirational in a lot of ways. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another empowering episode of the You World Order Showcase podcast. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from our incredible life, health, and transformational coaches who are making a profound impact on the world. Remember, change begins with you, and you have the power to transform your life and the lives of others. If you want to take that next step and unlock your true potential, visit thecoachesalchemist.com, where you can find the 3 ways we can help you for free to spin your talent into gold with clarity, a system, and a plan. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an inspiring episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more people with our positive message. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and upcoming guest announcements. You can find us on Facebook at the You World Order or simply visit thecoachesalchemist.com.